Hey guys, it's Angelo, and welcome to my Shadow Priest guide for patch 9.0.2, the launch patch of World of Warcraft Shadowlands. At long last, after countless videos and hours of alpha and beta testing, World of Warcraft's newest expansion is finally live, and what better way to get into the flow of things than with a detailed, thorough guide of the Shadow Priest. Shadowlands brings a lot of new features and new content to the spec, with many old abilities returning to the spec, alongside an entire rework with a load of brand new talents and rotation, new stat priorities, covenants, soulbinds, legendaries, and many other things. Over the course of the Shadowlands alpha and beta, the Shadow Priest has seen a load of changes, which we've all seen come into fruition during the pre-patch a little over a month ago, but now with Shadowlands, we will get the real deal. In this guide, as with all of my previous guides, we'll go over what's changed for the Shadow Priest, and we'll talk about how these changes have impacted the spec, our stat priority, our talents and which ones to pick in certain situations, your covenants and which ones to pick, which soulbinds to choose, which legendaries to aim for, and finally the overall pros and cons of the spec. Now, the rotation can be found in detail in another video, with the link popping up on your screen now if you wish to see that as well. If you wish to discuss anything Priest or World of Warcraft related with fellow viewers or myself over on Discord, well, be sure to hit the link in the description box below to join the server. Also, I'm streaming on Twitch every weekday from 6 PM to 11 PM Central European Time, so if you have any questions you want answered live, be sure to catch me there. If you like what you see and this video will be helpful to you, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe to future videos. And of course, with that being said, and without letting you wait any longer, my friends, let's go right ahead and have a look. First off, let's discuss what has changed for us with Shadowlands. If you have not played World of Warcraft in a while and are returning with this patch, or rather with this expansion, then this section should get you back on track with the current standing of the Shadow Priest. If you have been following most of my previous videos, then you can essentially skip ahead, the timestamps are embedded in the YouTube player for you. Long story short, a lot has changed for the spec, or quite frankly everything. Void Form is now a cooldown, and the spec plays very similar to like it did prior to Legion, with a builder and spender playstyle. Now, when making this video, I honestly wanted to make a list of spells which had been changed, had been removed or even nerfed, but the truth is that nearly every single spell, talent or other aspect of our toolkit has been changed drastically in these past months, so I'd only be cluttering up the screen if I display those changes, and at the end of the day they really don't matter for this video. To summarize though, many talents have been changed or removed, new talents have been implemented, while some old spells have returned, specifically Devouring Plague and Shadow Word Death, which is now a spell and not a talent any longer. Void Form as a system has been removed completely, and Void Form now only serves as a damage cooldown every 90 seconds. Insanity, on the other hand, is still our resource, however it doesn't really drain anymore, but instead it is now just used to spend insanity consuming, or rather to spend it on insanity consuming spells, namely on Devouring Plague and on Searing Nightmare. Our damage revolves around the idea of building insanity via our core spells, so Mind Blast, Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, as well as Mind Flame, Mind Sear, while then spending that insanity on Devouring Plague and on Searing Nightmare. Overall, the Shadow Priest feels pretty smooth with decent gear, and our toolkit allows for a plausible solution to any problem we encounter, no matter if it is in single target or multi-target. We're also quite mobile with the implementation of talents like Damnation or Unfurling Darkness, or even Death and Madness, as well as with our new passive, Dark Thoughts, which gives us a chance to proc a free and instant cast Mind Blast. If you were a big fan of the BFA and Legion Shadow Priest, you will most likely be pretty disappointed, but if you enjoy a builder and spender playstyle though, and enjoy dot management, use of instant casts, and just the old version of the Shadow Priest, then this playstyle is absolutely for you. Alright, now let's go ahead and take a look at our stat priority and figure out what has changed. When it comes to our stat priority, we actually see quite a few changes which are pretty important. Azerite Essences, traits, and anything BFA related is gone, and since the stat squish has taken place, we will be valuing item level a lot more than before, specifically because intellect is strong due to this. This means that intellect is our priority now, after which comes haste again, as always, but now things change. Mastery and critical strike are essentially on par with one another, with both finding slightly more strengths depending on the covenant you pick and the talents you choose, but ultimately both are insanely close currently in potency. Your best option here is ideally to be simming yourself through mediums like raid bots and figure out which of these two stats you will benefit more out of, but both will essentially give you the exact same gain. Keep in mind that our mastery has been reworked and is now called Shadow Weaving, which increases our damage by the according amount of mastery for each Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague on the target. During Void form, all targets receive the maximum effect, so the same amount of damage as if they'd have all dots applied to them, no matter how many dots are actually applied to them. Though this mastery sounds very specific and a bit complicated, it's actually fairly simple and doesn't even affect or alter the way you play, and just deals a lot of sweet damage. Critical Strike though again is very powerful as well, as it synergizes well with our Auspicious Spirits, with Hungering Void, and even with Ancient Madness, and, funnily enough, actually also with Mastery. Our stat priority will ideally therefore diverge into either a Haste Mastery-centered build or a Haste Critical Strike-centered build. Versatility is currently the worst stat of the bunch, as we just don't gain much out of it really. Alright, so far, so good. Next, let's talk about the new talents and what talent build you will be playing and why. Alright, let's start right off in the level 15 talent row. Here, we have Fortress of the Mind, Death and Madness, and Unfurling Darkness. In this talent row, all three talents can find their use, and currently all can be a realistic option, with Fortress of the Mind being the go-to option for raids, while Unfurling Darkness can be used in Mythic Plus or certain raid encounters with add spawns, like for example the Council of Blood. Death and Madness is incredibly strong in Mythic Plus, as it allows you to carry over a lot of insanity from Trash Pack to Trash Pack. Your level 25 talent row is entirely up to you, but Body and Soul will arguably be the most useful pick here, as both Sand Lane and Intangibility are quite situational talents. In your level 30 talent row, we have Twist of Fate, Misery, and Searing Nightmare. All three talents will be finding their use at launch, with Twist of Fate being very strong in single target encounters like Shriekwing or the Hungering Destroyer, while Misery is strong for any cleave fight and will be your go-to option there. Searing Nightmare is only really strong in Mythic Plus at the moment, save for a couple of bosses and raids, but in Mythic Plus it is hands down your best option. I've discussed this in my Shadow Priest rotation video for the launch patch, so be sure to check that out for more info. In our level 35 talent row, the choice is yours once more, with Last Word and Psychic Horror being the best options most of the time. In the level 40 talent row, we have Auspicious Spirits, Psychic Link, and Shadow Crash. Currently, both Shadow Crash and Auspicious Spirits are competitive options, with Shadow Crash actually being your go-to for single target as well as for Mythic Plus, and Auspicious Spirits finding strength in spreaded cleave fights, so mostly in raids. Your shadowy apparitions can deal quite a lot of damage with higher ranking conduits for it, and the possibility is definitely there for the talent to push its way to the top deeper into the expansion. In our level 45 talent row, we have Damnation, Mindbender, and Void Torrent, with Void Torrent winning in most situations and the other two being relatively situational. Mindbender is good in Mythic Plus as it generates a lot of insanity while only costing you one global cooldown every minute, while Void Torrent just deals absolutely insane amounts of damage and also generates 60 insanity every 30 seconds basically. Damnation can be good for fights where you'll be moving frequently though, but let's be honest, it's mostly just used in PvP rather than in PvE. Finally, in our level 50 talent row, we have Ancient Madness, Hungering Void, and Surrender to Madness. All three options are strong in their according environment. Ancient Madness is a decent all-round talent, and its critical strike buff can be quite a DPS push early on in the expansion, as it buffs your Void forms by quite a bit, while Hungering Void is insanely strong in any single target or even two target cleave fight, or just any fight or environment where you will be able to maintain Void Bolts on a single target for as long as possible. Surrender to Madness is good when you can abuse it and force a second Void form every 90 seconds, making it a competitive choice in Mythic Plus. Overall, our talents provide us with a beautiful amount of choice to deal with any given situation. Alright, next up, let's take a detailed look at Covenants, Soulbinds, and Conduits. Our Covenants and their according gameplay aspects were probably the part of this guide that made me wait the longest before releasing it. They've been changed quite frequently throughout the beta, but now at launch, things have become clearer. When it comes to which Covenant you want to pick, genuinely all 4 options currently have their strengths. In my personal opinion, the Necrolords will be your best option for most, if not for all PvE content, but by a margin so slim that it is seriously not really that important, or rather it doesn't really matter. At launch, you can safely pick whatever Covenant you wish to play, with the Necrolords being incredibly easy to upkeep with their Unholy Nova, while the Kyrian will also be very strong early on, but will require more attention as the Boon of the Ascended is not as easy to use as other Covenant abilities. The Night Fae are also perfectly fine to use, and find their strength in Mythic Plus heavy content, where you can profit a lot from their Void form cooldown reduction. The Venthyr are honestly best for PvP, but are still very okay for PvE as well. If you'll be focusing on PvP though mostly, the Venthyr will definitely be your go-to. I'll be talking about our Covenants very frequently on stream in the upcoming days, so be sure to catch me there if you should have any questions. When discussing Conduits and Soulbinds, we have pretty clear winners in all Covenants and pretty clear winners in terms of Conduits. When going with the Kyrian, you will want to go with Pelagos, while the Necrolords will give you Ameni and Hymir, the latter which you'll be able to unlock later on. The Venthyr have Nadia and Theotar, with Nadia being slightly ahead and immediately available. The Night Fae bring you Dreamweaver as well as Nia, and both are essentially equal in strength. For Conduits, you will ideally want to be running with Dissonant Echoes and with Haunting Apparitions, and which one of those you wish to slot in first highly depends on what type of gameplay you'll be focusing on, but it will essentially not matter that much, both will be used once you have both slots either way. Alright, now after that being said, let's take a look at our Legendaries. Okay, so our best Legendary to play with currently is the Eternal Call to the Void. You will not have access to that legendary until the raid launches, so in theory, you would be able to craft another one before that, which would either be Talbot or Stratagem, or the Shadowflame Prism. However, if you choose to do so, you may not be able to level up the Eternal Call to the Void once it is obtainable to rank 2 immediately, so waiting will absolutely become a viable option, as the Eternal Call to the Void is incredibly strong. It's also insanely easy to use, as it's proc based and depending on your Mind Flay and Mindseer casts, and gives you an incredible boost in Insanity when it procs. Talbot or Stratagem can be quite good on single target, while the Shadowflame Prism can be decent in Mythic Plus, but honestly both options simply lose out against the Eternal Call to the Void in pretty much any situation. I'll be sure to make a separate video on Legendary soon, so of course be sure to stay tuned for that. Finally, let's address the pros and the cons of the spec, and let's summarize. The Shadow Priest is looking pretty strong at launch, and has looked very strong through the development cycle. Due to its rework, the spec has everything in its kit to deal with pretty much all forms of PvE and PvP content properly and thoroughly, not only damage-wise, but also from a utility and movement point of view. Our mobile form of dealing damage, with many instant casts, paired with our flexibility when it comes to talents, helps us shine in pretty much all situations. We're able to funnel high amounts of damage into single target damage rather into one enemy with spells like Void Torrent or the Hungering Void, while we're also able to spread that damage into almost an unlimited amount of enemies, especially so with things like Searing Nightmare. This sets us apart from most other classes at this point, as most of our AoE damaging abilities are not capped, or are capped at numbers which are unrealistically high, meaning you will most likely only rarely encounter that many enemies at one given time. All in all, the Shadow Priest rework was a step into the right direction, as it will make it a lot easier for the developers to balance us and offers higher chances of being competitive in different aspects of the game, for example of course higher Mythic Plus keys. What do you think though? How excited are you when stepping into Shadowlands? Any aspects of the game or even of the Shadow Priest that you dislike so far, and if so, why? Well, be sure to let us all know in the comment section down below, but apart from that, thank you so much everyone for watching. If this video was helpful to you, be sure to leave a like, and if you wish to stay updated on the content of this channel, then of course feel free to subscribe. A special thanks to all of my supporters over on Patreon, you guys are awesome, and thank you so much for all the gifted subs, the donations, and the subscribers over on Twitch. Now, as always, have a good one my friends, have a wonderful start into Shadowlands, and I will see you all in the next one.